Okay, supposedly it's live. So let's go over to YouTube. Go over to view my channel. Turn off my volume.
Oh yeah, I see it. The notification. That was quick, baby. I'm proud of you.
Well, I didn't set up Facebook yet. And,
Okay, good. That worked.
hello, old school Dave. I'm just getting things working. Well, some folks maybe tune in here.
A lightning hit a New York City skyscraper.
Really?
Apparently.
Doesn't that happen all the time?
Probably. Hi, old school Dave. Interstellar
How
travel.
come I can't pop the chat out? Oh, there it is. The wrong spot.
Not the wrong spot.
Yeah. Okay, so now all I gotta do is
Share it on Facebook.
yeah.
Hopefully everybody's been doing well. I guess I'll fill in the silence while Sawyer posts a link on his Facebook page so his Facebook friends can join the live stream if they so choose to. We've been enjoying the weather where we are, and it just got into the 90s last week, I think. But the past couple days it's cooled off because it rained a little. So hopefully the weather with everybody else is good. Dario, hello from Argentina. Just for anybody that's just stepping in, Sawyer is posting on Facebook a link to this live stream.
Yeah.
He'll start talking in a minute.
Yep.
He's alive. He's not just a mannequin over there in the little box.
But that would be fun, right? A deep fake. A deep fake.
Hot in Texas.
We happen to be in the shade right now.
That's per usual, yeah.
We're lucky. Hello from Argentina. So what's the topic today? Well, it's actually interstellar travel. And hello to Old School Dave and Interstellar Travel before that, and Matthew Carey. Right. I mean, I was just, Matthew Carey, I just picked out one thing out of audio tape 199.
Which is a really good one.
Yes, it's really good. It's good in a number of ways, and it's the kind of
listen to it for like how long too?
Yeah, and I would only listen to part of it, and then I'd be working, and I'd be too tired, and blah blah blah, and so we only got to finish listening to it today. No, tomorrow. Yesterday. I'm sorry. But and I knew I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. It's got to digest, because even though I was sitting there at the time, when I listen to these tapes now, I see how much there was that I wasn't tuning into. and that's because it's actually not part of the design to give us more than we can handle. And what I mean by more than we can handle is it doesn't do a whole lot of good if somebody tells us something, um, if we're not in a mindset of at least considering that it might be real. Okay, now I know that in the human kingdom, especially now, there's so many people saying things, telling us things that you can't. I mean, you'd be a fool to take everything they say and think that that might be real. I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it hurts to go through the exercise of maybe it can be real, or maybe real. When I say real, I'm not talking about whether the government or some agencies or some private corporations or whatever can manufacture certain events like like UFOs and things, with drones and things. Um, Trying to determine whether that's real or not. I'm talking about when it comes to the higher information about the next level that many humans would be thinking of as space aliens, or as in or that has been uh, distorted um, into thinking that it's all like supernatural, spiritual, and nothing is at the next level, even though they created all this reality of the earth and the mineral kingdom and the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom and the human kingdom, kingdom levels of life, with their own forms of intelligence. Uh, um, and with all the details of what they created that we take advantage of, uh, we take advantage of in a sense. I think I do. I think probably most of us do. As being real, because we can see it, we can feel it, we can taste it, we can touch it, we can do all these things to it. But then if somebody tells you something that's real that we can't see and touch and feel and think about, then it's a matter of, in my mind, whether there's next level truth in it. And then even that can be a problem because there can be next level truth in a lot of things, but it can be mixed up with all kinds of artificial intelligence. I'm calling it artificial intelligence because it's not real. It doesn't lead to something that is genuinely real. It's like a theory, or it's like a hypothesis, or it's like an opinion, or it's like a hearsay, or it's you know something that maybe governments are able to do, and or it's propaganda, or and those things aren't real. I mean, sure, they're happening, so they are real in that context. That there's real people talking about it, and they're demonstrating different things that they do in the science communities and stuff. So yeah, that's all real, but it's all, even it is a facsimile of the next level's reality. And the reason it's a facsimile is because the things that they do aren't being done the way that members of the next level would do them, and most times, maybe all the time, are, compared to the next level, extremely primitive. Like even like so primitive that to us, uh, to, to humans, the next level is like the relationship of next level members to animals, to dogs and cats and domesticated animals primarily, because they're showing the signs of moving up in their own evolutionary kingdom. And uh, so our brains are actually not capable of, let me put it this way, they're almost incapable of perceiving next level's reality. I'm saying it that way because I believe that's the way Doe said it. Uh, and maybe I'll get to that because I want to start from the top of my notes regarding audio tape 199 that was recorded on February 10th, 1985, and goes into a little bit of audio tape 200 with the end of a thought that is started in audio tape 199. So, and the way this tape was labeled was why we can't see labs. Vehicle not designed with the capability. Basic programming. 99% of sightings not computable, only recallable. It would disrupt if humans could see. We are only permitted to see a certain amount. Some of the words were cut off of that description, so the certain amount part, I'm not sure exactly if that was the words they used. But the other description that I put on it also was crew harmony, was another part of that description. It came from the tape log. And I think anyway, so that was written by, I'm not sure totally if what I just read, was all part of the original tape log. Because
Because you don't have access to that.
yeah, I don't have access to that original tape log.
Or do you?
Well,
Man, I shouldn't have said that. That was incorrect.
I don't think I do. I don't think I do because no,
Did
T was
Riccotti?
still in her vehicle, so yes.
Did Mercody have the original tape log?
Riccotti did.
Yeah.
He had one of the original tape logs. But in the tape logs, a lot of times there was a lot of information. And in that little synopsis that I brought up to you, I should really go to the tape log and load that up. Because I want to do a better job with that. If I'm going to read it, I should read what came from T&O and crew. See, that was from the file name that was put together by the person who I think digitized it, which includes some of that description from the next level from T&O and crew, but it doesn't have it all because a lot of times you can't put that many characters in a file name. So that's what I'm talking about. So let me go to the actual tape log and go down to 199. Shouldn't take me but a minute or less. And I'm going to read it. Oh yeah, I did miss a little bit in the end of that. So I'm going to read it. It's 199 AB, and that represented sides of the tape. And then February 10th, 1985, and February 13th, 1985. And I remember in the beginning of it, there was a stop, and then it started again. Yeah.
That's right.
And so it's crew harmony continued. Why we can't see labs. Vehicle not designed with capability. Basic programming. 99% of sightings not computable, only recallable. It would disrupt if humans could see. We are only permitted to see on levels of speculation. Information carefully given to selected individuals. Now, we talked about this before because T&O talked about it before. Maybe it was 198. I'm not sure where, but they talked about how the spacecrafts themselves weren't just for transportation. they were actually workstations and labs, and there's labs for, well, I think they kind of said everything that's happening on Earth. I mean, dealing with it or promoting it or encouraging certain things and influencing people to go in certain directions when they ask, and have to ask in a way that they're thirsty for the truth, or not the truth, but the information or the discovery or the solution to a problem. And it has nothing to do with the terms God and religion, and even though you can see in the religious texts of even different religions, you can see evidence of the same thinking, and the same reality of physical spacecrafts that have members of the kingdom of God operating on them. And I'm not going to go into all the evidence of that, but right now, because that's not the focus here. But did you want to add something or correct me on something? If you
No, I was just looking at that and my jaw dropped.
yeah, yeah, that's pretty. Well, you like that kind of detail, though.
Yeah, that's intense.
Mm-hmm. So,
Sorry.
um, and then tape 200 finishes that 199, but it's continued also, and talks about labs locations. And I look forward to listening to that so that we can report to you some of the things. If you don't have time to go find the tapes for yourself and listen to them, which I can't give anybody any clues as how to do that because I'm being sued, and Kathy is as well, and Carloti is as well, for giving away the tapes or playing them on
Well,
this.
I never gave the tapes away.
Right, Kathy never gave them away. So even though she's being accused of some of the same things that I was doing, uh, I was doing it for 10 years and they didn't say anything about it. And then all of a sudden, when we got some more tapes, they were all talking about it. I mean, I'm talking about Mark and Sarah. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about them during this broadcast, I hope, because I don't get any pleasure from doing so. And I do get pleasure from talking about Tiendo, because there, I know that it's a fact that there's things that I didn't know when I joined, but that I grew to know um, by being a sponge as much as I could be. Um, well, I shouldn't say as much as I could be because we can always do better. That's the way the members of the next level think.
Yeah.
They're not. They don't. They don't try to get to a position and then think, well, I can rest on my laurels now. I am a captain now in the military, and now I can rest. I can live out my career like this. But next level members are like, every time they see something that needs to be improved, they go to work to improve it, and they do it through all the different labs that they have, and through their older members, and the older members don't do the work necessarily. They do some of it, but they don't do all of it because they have crews for doing the work, and the work is like working in a laboratory. Like I was picturing it the other day, and I don't know if I got a good picture. It was like a dream state that I was in, and I had this image of a number of members of the next level, like working around a table, and they were actually working on uh, improving the design of certain insects.
Oh, that's right. Yesterday you were thinking that.
Yeah, and I thought, wow, that. I mean, it felt like I was really observing that. Even though I'm not saying I was, I think that because listening to that tape stimulated my brain to think about that, and that's what each of us in the human kingdom do and don't do. You know, we do in degrees potentially, or like when it's next level information, and we are thinking about it, then we're actually helping prepare our brain for the reality of the next level. And also, with that comes responsibility of if we're passing it along to somebody else, which is part of a believer's task now to do in some shape or form, according to their own desires and timing and whatever and ways. There's no you can't measure it like a corporation does and say, oh well, that person put 4 hours in to talking about the next level, and he posted this and he posted that, and like me, I post this about what this political person's saying, and with an intention of showing how it might relate to next level teachings and things, and I could be wrong about those kind of things. So that's not really necessarily sharing Tiendo's mind with people. Uh, um, but but even whatever little we do, it's up to us. The whole thing is up to us. The next level doesn't. Um, they try to help us move as quickly as we want to, and they want us to move quickly. They also know that uh, it's everybody doesn't have the same steps to take, and I might have more steps to take than some people. I don't know, because I was exposed to so much true information that there's more that might be required of me, but I don't know that. I can't use that as an excuse for not doing certain things. But anyway, I'm getting off the track. But I think this is all. It's reflective of some of the things that I've been going through for the last week in communicating with people. That some people will say, well, you have to be willing to kill yourself to, to graduate with the next level. And people that are saying that to me are not correct. And and you can quote little things that those said here and there to make them look correct, but that doesn't mean that that applies to anybody now. But it might. I don't know if it applies or not. I stand with the last thing that they said, that they knew was going to be left behind, that describes, that wasn't even put in the book of how to get to the next level. But that is the document that says the position against suicide. And I suggest that people read that document even many times in order to try to understand every word that they put in that document is meaningful. And virtually every word. So,
Where can they find that?
and that document is on the Heaven's Gate website on the front page, where it gives you a bunch of different tabs to click to get more information, and one of them is called Our Position Against Suicide. So, so anybody that tells you that that's the goal is not speaking um, accurately. Even though the members of the group left by that method that humans would call the S word, which I try not to say so much in case some of the bots are going to start scanning for that. Anyway, but as a basis to delete my videos, I don't know if they'll ever get to that point or not, but Hopefully not, um, because I believe people that do want to commit suicide now would stand a lot to gain if they became aware of uh, more of the reality of the next level and that they actually have value potentially in it. Everybody doesn't have value. I mean, I'm not saying I have more value than anybody else. I don't. But in terms of the next level, they give the opportunity to understand them and connect with them and believe in them and even put into effect uh, their teachings according to each person and according to what the vehicles had grown to be capable of, and also what the vehicles would provide as a kind of exercise machine for the souls that the next level said returned to pick vehicles that they could take over and convert into next level vehicles, even if they don't get that far, um, because they've been subject to enough to where they built the strength that it takes to actually be rewarded with a next level physical body that they can then use in their tasks in labs on spacecraft workstations. So, all right, so I'm just going to go to the chat room for a second in case there's some, something that I've said that stimulates some questions before I go back to my tape notes. Um, Interstellar Travel says, I unfortunately have to go to work. I'll make sure to pick up where I left off. Thank you for everything you do, Sawyer and Kathy. Well, you're welcome. Thank you, Interstellar Travel. Have a good work day. And, okay, so since there's nothing else.
There's harm.
Oh, oh yes, harm. I'm sorry. I skipped right down to where the bigger question was. And I didn't see that you came in here and said hello. So glad to see you. Um, and I hope everything in the continent of Europe is going okay. I see different things happening. Uh, like everywhere, I guess. And we're definitely in more and more challenging times. Whether we feel it or not, whether we interpret it or not, I think we're all under a stronger kind of pressure cooker.
Well, we were talking about that with, like, as far as the closeness of the next level and how things were progressing on the planet in relation to that closeness.
Yes, and T&O talked about that, didn't they? In that
Yeah.
last, in the audio tape that we're talking about.
Yeah, at the very beginning, I think it was.
Let's see if I can find it. Well, T was starting off talking about how that the experiences, and this to me this applies to everybody potentially. Okay, even though it was specifically designed that T and Do were giving these lessons to the group of students that were souls that took vehicles, and to get those students uh, through the graduation. Okay, but everybody that is approaching that potential of going through their own graduation uh, can benefit from the exact same teachings, I believe.
But
And
don't you need, like, you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
no, it's okay. I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead and say it in case I'm wrong.
Don't you need an older member present to have any kind of graduation?
Yes, but I'm using the word graduation lightly. Okay, well, when I'm saying graduation, I'm talking about how Tiendo taught right from the very beginning that all levels of life were moving up at this time because of the next level closeness. And so the next level closeness is always, I believe, degrees of closeness
Yeah.
according to the actual physical closeness of members of the next level. And that's the closeness that left. Okay, but they are still close to us with their minds, but the content of their minds isn't in this atmosphere anymore. And this
Well,
goes
you
into
don't
a
necessarily know that to say that 100%.
right. I don't know it 100%,
They may come
but
and go.
yes, but where I was going on that,
I'm
um,
just throwing that out
no,
there.
it's good to, yes, they may come and go. They may have all kinds of tasks to do that I don't know about, helping people directly, and it could be, right there next to that person. And that person might not be asking for, they might not think that they're asking the next level for help, or the kingdom of God for help, or heaven help, or Jesus for help, or Krishna, or Buddha, or any of the ones that were the basis of the beginning of what became major religions during the civilization. Uh, but they can be. They can be doing all kinds of tasks that we don't know about. But I think by and large, whether they're in this atmosphere or not, they could be in orbit around the planet, or they could be on the moon, stationed inside of it, or on another planet inside of it, or Pluto might be the closest they get. But for them, that might be like a hop, skip, and a jump to get here if they need to be here for some reason. But 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 what I was trying to go towards with that thinking was that, and that's in this tape 199, where it talks about how uh, it was even potentially part of the design that Tiendo, when they came here to take over human vehicles that were prepared for them, for their souls to take, that they were on a timeline of a sort, and that timeline uh, had to do with uh, what information would come out when. I'm saying timeline, but I don't know that it's associated with time, because I think it's associated most with the responses of uh, the primary students, and then you could say the secondary students, those that recognize their older member but have weaknesses, and then the human kingdom that is potentially all different grades in school that aren't necessarily going to recognize though as their older member, uh, but they might. Some probably will. And when the next level sees individuals, because they can see who is thirsty, because they have computer systems that can, it shows up like a little brighter light. So when they see somebody that's thirsty for the truth or for new information or for solving a problem, they can, that the next level wants to help them solve because they want to upgrade the human kingdom in some way, like bringing electricity to the planet and things like that.
Right.
Um, then they um, then when their minds are in this atmosphere, if they've got that information in their minds, and those, coming through their minds, coming to some degree into the brains of their vehicles, um, then that becomes tappable by other people. And so the next level doesn't want to give too much information too fast, because that some of the information isn't applicable to the task at hand, which was to graduate into the next level. So we don't know how, we don't, T and Do didn't need that part of their minds to come into their vehicles in order to give their student body information about exactly how their spacecrafts operate. You know, whether they have like a internal compartment that is suspended within a, 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 a greater shell in order to maintain their gravity while they go through incredible speeds and things like that. So Tiendo didn't have the details of that. They, what I just described, I might have done a little bit of a botched job of it, but Do describes in an audio tape. And so I think it might have been 149 even that he talked about that. But anyway, um, but they didn't get the details on a lot of things. And part of this tape 199 that I feel like I need to listen to again, but maybe Kathy can fill in some gaps that I have about it, was this experience that Do had. And from the experience that Do had, I'm going to tell you ahead of time, T thought that he had received some information that was then the duty or the task of students to pull out of him. And that's what they were doing with this meeting and other meetings. But in this case, uh, Doe, maybe you can describe the beginning of that experience Doe had. You know, where the end, so the middle of it was where he took T's vitamins twice because he got confused, even though he was organizing everything exactly the way that they organize things.
Well, he was like getting, I guess, information. I can't remember what precluded
Yeah, and it was
talking about that, but like he was receiving, information,
yeah,
and like he was just like bursting with energy.
yeah, and like T and Do had their routines, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so like one of their routines was, uh, you know, in preparation for going down for the night. That's what they called going to sleep. Um, uh, uh, or waking up and then their routine in the morning or whatever it was, the afternoon routine, they took vitamins. And the whole class had vitamins. But T had a different set of vitamins than Do did because of what they determined they each needed. And class members also had different prescriptions for vitamins if they were having reactions to certain ones or things like that, which, you know, that all developed over experimenting with vitamins. And this is in the 80s. And so, anyway, um, that's when a lot of doctors were saying that vitamins don't do you any good.
Right.
You know, because humans are often very far behind reality. But the next level helps humans get more of that reality. So now you have all kinds of doctors that believe in vitamins and herbs
Mm-hmm.
and homeopathics and all kinds of things that they're not really turning away anything hardly. I mean, except for the people that are the big pharma people, but they're doing the same things, I think, but they're making them into different products and stuff that they can then sell.
Right. That's what they've done.
Right.
Instead of fighting it, they joined.
Yeah. Right. Even though they were even up until the big C disease, um, they were they were trying to challenge um, the health food stores at the time. There were little mom and pops for the most part, or little bigger mom and pop kind of stores all over the country. You know, sometimes there were supermarkets, even in the 80s and 90s. Well, I don't know about the 80s, but the 90s, there were definitely supermarket size, what they were called health food stores before, where they sold supplements.
Yeah, like Whole Foods and
Yeah, like Whole
Walgreens.
Foods and
Wild oats.
wild oats and a number of others.
Sprouts.
Sprouts, right? I remember Sprouts in New York and Whole Foods in New York, and then there was others that remained independent. Anyway, but where you could buy bulk things, you could buy
Yeah,
all kinds
yeah,
of herbs and
yeah.
yeah, but the pharmaceutical industry was trying to stop people from having free access to choosing to buy those things, and they're trying to make it so that those things were considered to be drugs that needed to be regulated by the FDA. And every time that would come up for vote, it would get shot down by the different lobbies that didn't want to see that the FDA in control of everything that we have access to. Um, that's kind of tyranny to do that. We the next level provides all these things for opportunities uh, because the drugs, even though the drugs have their value, sometimes or maybe a lot of times, they all have side effects, and even herbs and things, vitamins have side effects too, but not. I don't think nearly as uh,
They're not as potentially life threatening or,
yeah, detrimental, yeah,
yeah.
to the health of
And
somebody.
you know pretty immediately
Yeah,
if you're going to have an adverse reaction. Like to, having too much garlic.
right. It can hurt your stomach.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
so you're probably not going to make that mistake again.
right, right, or too much cayenne pepper. Because I've experienced that.
Too much milk, or milk,
Sure.
probably ice cream or
Yeah,
milk
and pretty much
products,
anything can be too much of it.
cheese.
And but then with supplements, they were always saying that, or some of them were saying that homeopathics is a bunch of
Malarkey.
superstitiousness. But that's because they weren't tuning into realities beyond their ability to comprehend for those people because of the training they had and probably the their development, their programming. It's a lot of it. It's what we're talking about is programming, and what the next level demonstrates is that you can take little amounts of certain ingredients, and that that can become um, of major help to somebody. And
Mm-hmm.
we know that.
Yep,
I know that
I know
from
it.
experience with homeopathics, and Kathy knows that from experience with homeopathics.
Yep,
That they, even though
100 times over.
yeah, and so without that experience, though, uh, it looks like hocus pocus to people, some people.
It makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get why. I mean, I do. I understand because it's such a small, minute amount
Right, but electromagnetics
that
is part
throws
of, I
people
think,
off.
frequencies is part of it. It's like, and the programming of our vehicles is part of it. What our vehicles, what ingredients stimulate what in our vehicles.
Yeah,
And
to
so, and our
fight.
minds as well. We all know that we can take things, herbs and things, that can affect our minds. So, uh, so anyway, moving on. But the way to, uh, so I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about something that they were doing in order to not give in to what they felt they wanted to outgrow uh, in terms of making the vehicle attractive to somebody else. For the purpose of being together with other people. In some way, right? Like finding a partner or whatever, or getting married and all that. But and 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 somebody responded to that person by talking about how um, uh, because those not here anymore, there's nothing we can do really to advance ourselves, and except except in being prepared for um, knowing what the requirements are to become a member of the next level, which certainly someone trying to become a member of the next level, if they want to tackle that area of being attractive and whatnot. Not that you don't want to be unattractive to people. You don't want to turn people off. Not that anybody else really is the decider of that. But I mean, T and Do had standards. They wanted to look clean, and you know, but they didn't want to attract somebody else being interested in them.
Mhm.
That's what I'm talking about. And that's because members of the next level don't have that. They don't. They're in the laboratories that they're in, working with side by side with other members of the next level. They're not looking at each other and saying, "Oh, your eyes are awful nice. I like that eyeshadow that you're wearing," and whatever, or that, you've got luscious lips or something. Like the next level doesn't do that because they don't have any of that. And so, in order to become a member of the next level, the soul actually has to identify with that behavior. It has to not identify with it. It has to fill themselves with the next level criterias and ways of working with each other, and the way that individuals show their love for each other by by the way they work with each other on tasks in the lab, and the way they love to work for their older members and do tasks for their older members. And so does that mean that's gone now from the human kingdom, that nobody can advance? And that's not true at all. And you can hear that throughout the tapes. Even in this tape 199, it talks about how people will be listening to these tapes. And they even told the students at the time that they thought you needed to re-listen to this tape in order to get more of what they were talking about. Because there's a number of ideas in it that are difficult to comprehend. And even when I'm talking about labs, and the next level being real and having laboratories, and so we shouldn't ever discourage somebody else from taking to heart any degree of control over their vehicles, especially in relationship to them having belief in T and Do. I say especially because there can be people that are taking control of their vehicles that they may be doing perfectly for their grade in school in the human kingdom. Okay, so they may be learning things that are valuable to them for the future, but uh, but in, but when they're faced with the older members coming incarnate, and their vehicles are chosen for a soul to return to try to take it over, if they don't have, if they haven't gone through uh, recognition of the mind coming from the next level that every human vehicle has a little bit of, but then certain vehicles might have more of, just you know, uh, even though more might not be more in all ways, and so somebody could look like they're doing better than somebody else, but then they got this other thing they were never faced with, and until they're faced with that, uh, you know, when are faced with that, they don't respond as well as the person that didn't have the characteristics, you know, that the other person had. In other words, everybody's got their own kind of list of things that describe the characteristics that need to be approached and overcome to some degree in order to actually uh, qualify to graduate into the next level. And so I think there'd be, so I should use a different word, but Tiendo did talk about the human kingdom as being like 12 grades in school, and that first 6 grades or so and so, And then when you get to the 12th grade, people are thinking, well, I want to get out of here. I don't like the way what it is. I don't like what's going on here. It doesn't make sense to me, and never has, and I haven't really fit in. Blah 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 blah. Okay, well that's a sign that 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 person, that vehicle, and that mind is approaching being ready to enter into a next level graduate program. So, but they might not get. They don't have a. They don't all necessarily have a chance to be with Tiendo when they're there because they're only here for a certain amount of years, right? And so people were born at different times don't have that same exact opportunity, but their presence and their mind being left behind, especially when we have the tapes of hearing them talk and the videotapes of seeing them talk, and to me is a presence of the next level. But it's not. But are people going to graduate to the same spacecraft that those that were with Doe graduate to? Probably not. Okay, but I'm not the one that determines that. And so why would you want to stop anybody from going the distance of learning everything they can about how to control their vehicle and learning to work for the next level, even with them at a distance, whatever distance they're at, by asking for that service and looking for the ways that they help us have the service that we ask for. So anyway, I hope I didn't make a mess of that. I know it's probably hard to follow because
Well, there's really no like reason to promote by anything that is said negativity. So like whenever, not that I'm like some wise sage or anything, but when you're online and you're engaging in commenting on posts, think about before you hit the enter button for the comment that you typed up as a response, is any of this negative? Am I putting the other person down? Am I, being passive aggressive, like a backhanded compliment that's really not a compliment? And if there's anything negative in it, then don't say it, because there's no value to it.
right,
Ask yourself, anybody doing anything online, ask yourself, what is the value of me saying this? Like, I'm gonna type out, you are stupid and crazy and a cult follower and you're a lunatic. So before you hit enter, like, ask yourself,
what value is to saying that, right?
yes, why would you want to say that?
Right, you just want to get back at somebody or something, right?
Or
It's
maybe
like
you think it's funny.
right, think it's funny, right, right, and, like make fun of the cult people. It's funny how that word cult is so embedded now in society to use in a totally derogatory way, even though all it really means is that it's a subculture. It doesn't match with what became the culture in that country, or
It's like a buzzword now.
yeah. So now it represents a negative pretty much every time it's used. When it's not a negative. I mean, sure, there's people that uh, form groups and do some terrible things, killing people and things like that, and even
Like the
pushing people into.
military?
Yeah, military is one of those, right? And but everything they do isn't bad, I mean,
Right,
there's a
they're
lot
not
of
only just killing people.
right. I mean, they're doing all kinds of things and learning all kinds of things potentially, and so it's not like
That's true, they are, and they help a lot of people.
and it can help people, and yes, and but the part of it, that unfortunately makes the biggest splash. Uh, well, rightfully so, because when people are dropping bombs on other people, it doesn't get much worse than that. I mean, in the physical plane, anyway.
It's
The mental
terrible.
plane, the worst you can get, I think, is by actually teaching people things that were against the next level's reality. And but a lot of times people don't know they're doing that. And the people that are dropping bombs, they know what they're doing, but they may think they've justified it in some way.
You're right. They've yeah turned it in their head
Yeah, which
that it's
you know,
okay.
I think T even said in here that uh, the next level knows how to destroy something without like the way that humans have with like a nuclear bomb, to where they're wanting to destroy something and then the whole city gets demolished. The whole island gets demolished or whatever. That's uh, the next level wouldn't destroy things that way unless everything was needing to be turned over again.
Yeah, because they're
Like a
not wasteful.
recycled, right? Because they don't want to waste anything. If there's people that are growing and they're learning lessons, and that can eventually lead to them becoming potential members of the next level, uh, then they use that. Uh, um, it's well, T said they don't waste,
Right.
so they know how to use everything for a positive. And some of that positive might mean getting rid of souls that have become totally corrupt. And totally corrupt meaning that they don't want anything, they don't recognize the next level, and they don't care about what the next level was teaching. Or maybe they care about some things, but other things they don't. But to where they're actually leading people away from next level reality, and that the religions are doing that. The religions at this time, even though they could be stepping stones for people, in general, the religions are all killers of souls, because people get glued to them in such a way, and they think that those documents from thousands of years ago, not that the time frame is that important, but it is representing a different stage in the development of the civilization. When the next level is always improving the stages towards graduation. So it's like, you have addition and subtraction during the times of the, 1000 AD. No, or 1000 BC, or whatever it is, or zero, whatever, the dates are. But then they're given trigonometry when they're in the 11th grade, and 12th grade, but not really math. I'm not talking about math. I'm talking about lessons in life, because the next level doesn't need human math. Even though somebody that's prone to human math, uh, um, there's a certain amount of growth that they get from different things they go into in their human incarnations that adds to their mind, their souls, in ways that they would have a propensity to have tasks in labs that could be following through with things that they learned in their growing up period through incarnations in the human kingdom. All right, so, uh, but that, so everything we do becomes a potential exercise and of the task that is given to all that seek to become members of the next level. And that, Doe said that there's cognitive problems of vehicles putting it together. And that's normal. Like if negativity is around us, we don't know how it works, but it's not necessarily our task to know how it works. In Close Encounters, the movie, which they talked about in this tape, was involved more to educate a change of thinking. That lab was saying, wake up and see how what you talk about in the church is the same thing as people from space. Do it all in pro space films. Others against space. Others are against space. Religions can't get the adjustment in their brains. A lot of the young people realize it's the same thing. And T said that she she thought that they tried to say they were surprised by the closeness of the next level working with that movie. Um, but then T talked about another movie to where she was falling asleep during the
Yeah,
movie.
we don't think it was Close Encounters,
No,
right?
no, I don't think it was. We tried to listen to it again to see if it was, but we couldn't tell for sure. But this other movie that they watched uh, was unusual in that it zapped T's energy, and so they turned it off, and she was okay. Like she felt like she couldn't keep her eyes open while she was watching this movie, and she said later, she said it wasn't that bad. I mean, she said she said it in a joking way, that she's watched some movies that kind of put her to sleep, but this wasn't a movie like that, whatever it was. And but she was responding to how it put her to sleep, and so they watched about half of it and turned it off to watch it, and then the next night they tried to watch it again. The same thing happened to where T couldn't keep her eyeballs open, and then Doe was and then that was a distraction in itself because T didn't know why she couldn't keep her eyeballs open, and so it was distracting her from concentrating on the movie, which she wanted to concentrate on. Is my understanding of that. So uh, so then she forced herself to watch it, but then she felt like it was the closeness of the next level that was causing her vehicle at that time to go through that, and also causes humans to go haywire sometimes. Um, and by haywire, Doe was explaining that the brain doesn't want to function in that way. And uh, I don't know about you all, but I feel like I experienced that when I left the classroom. Uh, and then it was like the early 2000s that I went through a lot of things, and I talked to Doe in my head, and I asked if I could be of service again, and uh, I didn't get anything back, but I knew that I felt like I was going to be given some service, and so that's when I started to go to the internet to see what had been talked about Heaven's Gate since I was public in 1997. Because in between that time, I really wasn't doing anything. Between 1997 and 99 or 2000, I'm not sure exactly what the year was. I really wasn't doing anything directly to keep up with what was happening in the news, regarding Heaven's Gate, and I didn't know what was going on. Carloti was active because he was with Rick Odie in 1997 and the beginning of 1998. Um, but I was not, and so when I started to listen to the tapes again, like Doe's Final Exit and The Last Chance to Evacuate Earth Before It's Recycled, and Planet Earth About to Be Recycled, Your Only Chance to Leave is to Leave with Us, and regardless of which, I'm going to add, regardless of which bus they actually leave on. The first bus was with Doe physically on that bus, spacecraft, and so I remember, that was the first time I saw a video of Doe that wasn't like the Beyond Human series, you know, and to where his head was totally shaved and his whole face took up the whole screen at times, and I remember I could watch it for a little bit, and then my vehicle started to respond with like disbelief, and like this was bizarre. I was hearing thoughts like that, like it was like my brain just had drifted away from next level consciousness so far that even though I knew everything he was saying was true and real, it was like it was facing me with the fact that I didn't live up to it, and my brain was having trouble with computing it, and whenever that would happen, and it happened before, from reading certain documents, I knew I could push through it, but sometimes it would become so difficult to push through it that I decided, well, you know what, I'm just going to turn it off for right now, and then I'm going to, think about it, and then I would come back to it sometime later. I'm not sure when. It might have been days, but it didn't stop me from continuing to listen to tapes and want to come back up to speed to some degree with their information so that I could maybe be of service in certain ways of delivering their information to other people with my experience. And so, and I did end up. It took a while though before I wasn't having those kind of thoughts in the back of my head that weren't even necessarily forming, but I could tell were there. I could tell that there was an influence, a discarnate, or a space alien projecting something to me, beaming down some kind of thoughts to me or whatever, that I knew I did not want to have in my computer because they weren't true. I knew that. But if somebody didn't have the experiences I had, then they probably wouldn't even stand a chance if that same attack was given to them. But because I've had some experience, that level of attack from the lower forces was something that I was capable of withstanding. Just like everybody now is capable of withstanding a certain degree of attacks from the lower forces. If the key is to ask T and Do for help with that. So that if you feel yourself like losing the mind that you felt like you had gained in perspective of T and Do's reality, you know, I mean, sure, you have the choice to go with it. You have the choice to continue to think in that way. And you could actually end up going against T and Do and even thinking that you need to talk to other people about it, or doing so in some way, you never know where that could go in terms of the negative direction. But the positive direction would be not giving up and staying with it and restoring that mind if you had it before, and even using it as a springboard to even have more understanding. Because whenever we do that, whenever we override the vehicle and the brain with what we feel like we know is true, the direction that we're going, uh, we're actually gaining strength of mind by doing that. Because those thoughts that are coming to us that would give us doubts, that I know there's people now that are getting, there's thoughts around me right now, they're saying, oh yeah, this is how you do the brainwashing. You just tell people to not entertain those thoughts of doubts, right? And that's the brainwashing. But it's not easy to do that. it's easy to brainwash somebody with misinformation because they don't know it's necessarily misinformation. And so you can slip it in the door, and all of a sudden they're thinking in a certain way, and they don't even know why they're thinking in a certain way, but they end up uh, being can be totally off the track from the more accurate ways of thinking, which would be towards next level thinking. And so I didn't sum that up the way I was aiming towards, but um, so we always have the choice of choosing to keep on blocking those thoughts that are challenging us in that way, and uh, that's that takes an enormous effort, but we are capable of putting out that effort. And if we don't think we're capable, then ask T&O for help with that effort. And you can even ask them to reduce the bombardment. And the next level, T&O told us this, the next level will reduce the amount of ability of the lower forces to give us thoughts and influence us. Reduce what they can do to us so that we get a chance to get a breather and come back and say, ah, okay, I can handle that now. I understand where that's coming from. I understand why Doe is so strong there. And he needed to be strong there. I mean, it served a lot of purposes. Anyway, I don't know. I hope I made a few connections there that might be helpful to somebody. It's mostly the people that aren't able to at any time are having a problem with, like for instance, with the movie Close Encounters, and having a problem with their brain, thinking that this is a bunch of fantasy or something, even though some of it might have been, or some of it might have been taken from real events and then made into a dramatized more and stuff like that. But the idea of members of the next level operating on this planet and affecting humans, certain humans, in ways that was for their growth, uh, that is a reality. And but there's some humans that aren't quite ready for that yet. But don't put anybody down if they're not ready for that yet, because they could get ready for it real fast, and then they could grow very, very quickly to where they could be passing up everybody else. Not that the next level is any competition. There isn't competition. But next level members in general, well, just the way they are, is that they are always trying to do their tasks as quickly as possible without making a mess, and doing it to the degree of thoroughness that their older members would hope that they would be doing. And that's always changeable too. They make mistakes. They do things that can be done a little better way, and they also the older members also change their instructions at times to when they learn about certain things that the younger members are bringing to their attention about how something worked or something didn't work in the human kingdom, and then they make changes to where uh, everybody is in a growth mode. There is no negativity lab in the next level. So if you're hearing negativity about yourself or about other people, uh, there's no value to it now that I'm aware of, even though it can be used for a value. And it can be used to teach us things and teach the person that we might be negative to. can also make a positive out of it. But that's not a reason to consciously say something to somebody that's got no positivity in it, except you think maybe you're going to shock them out of believing the way they do, which is pretty ignorant thinking in some cases. I don't know, you know, but in a sense, I've taken a little bit of that approach, not shocking somebody, but by telling somebody something that came from Tiando's mind, it can be a shocker to somebody, whether they recognize it right away or not. And I don't, and sometimes uh, this might be a fault of mine, that sometimes I've been talking about something so much for so many years that I'm no longer saying things like I could be wrong about that or I might be misinterpreting that, and I'm skipping those steps. And I really wish I wouldn't skip those steps, or I would just be saying things in a way that was preachy, and somebody else could take it as I'm putting them down if I'm correcting them, especially if it's in a comment, on a group page or where other people are seeing it. They could be embarrassed by it, by my correcting them. Um, uh, and I could be wrong too. I can be corrected too, and I don't mind being corrected. In fact, I like being corrected. But if somebody's going to try to correct me, then I really appreciate them looking for the thing that T and Do said about it. And by doing that, that's a positive thing because then they'll go search the material to see if they can find the keywords or whatever, like in the Beyond Human series, because uh, the online book also has that text in there in the Beyond Human series. And so they can search through that to see if Doe said anything about this or that or this or that. And if he didn't say anything about this or that, then uh, then why correct me on something I said that they thought might not have been from Tiendo's mind? They can still bring it up to me, but it's but why? You know, what positive is it if they're like saying that, well, you don't do this and you don't do that, so therefore why would you tell somebody else that they can do everything they can do to become a member of the next level, but you don't do it, so you're a hypocrite. So what value is that to me or anybody else? You think I don't know the things that I do that are not necessarily, well, are not from the next level's mind to do? Do you think I don't know that I have a human vehicle that has characteristics that uh, if I was going towards graduation from this kingdom, I would have to get rid of before I would be given any significant service in the next level? So I do know that. But if somebody's going to tell me that when it's like not even on the topic, to me shows that they were kind of hurt by uh, my correction that I gave to them. And I don't like hurting people, making people feel bad, and I don't like looking like I know more, or even though about some things maybe I do know more, but then on other things that other person might know more, and it's just it becomes a back and forth then if I continue with the conversation where the person is justifying themselves and I'm justifying myself. Uh, and defensiveness was a characteristic in the classroom that we all had to overcome. So it got to the point to where if somebody brought up criticism that we were asking for in general or at the time, and, and the person was instructed to say, "Thank you, I'll think about that." that was the only response that they were to give at one point because of all the difficulties in the classmates were having being defensive with each other and getting into a match, of, you know, you said this and I said that, and I only said that because you said that, and you could have said it in a better way, so it wouldn't have been so offensive to me, and then and then class members would then say, I'm sorry, the way I said that was not as sensitive as it could have been, and I'll try to do better in that regard. A member of the next level would try to take responsibility for the part of it that they recognized they were responsible for. But it didn't mean that whatever a classmate said to them, they were automatically to say, yes, I'll examine that and I'll put it into effect right away, and because you're exactly right. There would be nothing wrong with that person thinking, how does that apply to me? Is that something that I really have a problem with and I really need to correct? And they would be thinking about that with their older members in mind, and they would, it may take them several days to think about it, but they may arrive at thinking at one point that I don't know how that applies to me. So what Doe would say about that, at least in my circumstance when I went through a lesson like that, Doe said, well, if the shoe doesn't fit, then don't try to wear it. Because you don't want to be a martyr. It's not a martyrdom trip. You're not trying to be blamed for everything that somebody says about you. As if, if I took that attitude, you know, probably every other day or every third day, I get some comment that is putting me down in some way. And if I let that weigh on me, then I would never want to do these live streams. In fact, they have weighed on me. And that's why sometimes it takes a while for me to do these live streams. Because it's like, well, it's complicated in some ways. But, it has to do with, I don't know that the next level, how much they want me to do these, want us to do these. I think they think it's a positive. I don't think I'd be doing them if it wasn't a positive. Because I wouldn't have the impetus for it. I wouldn't really, I would probably be someone that thought the next level left all their information behind, and that anything I do to add to it, even with my own interpretation, as I'm giving right now, is actually detrimental. Some class members have expressed that to me, that my input is dilution and distortion. And if it is, I want to try to. That's why I try to be a stickler, and I probably go to extremes for every word that somebody is using to describe something from the next level. And if I see a word that to me doesn't register as from Tiendo's mind, not because of the exact word necessarily, but sometimes that too, uh, but because of what that word represents. I'll give you an example. Somebody posted something which talked about that the next level was visiting. And when I heard that from the person that was posting this, which I didn't talk to that person, I talked to somebody else who was posting that other person's information. Um, uh, I saw like a characteristic of the way that, I'm not saying this person was thinking this way, but what occurred to me when I saw that word visit in relationship to what next level members were doing when they were on this planet, I saw the way that space aliens were being talked about as the visitors. And I'm like always beside myself with trying to show a distinction between the space aliens and next level members, because the space aliens are souls that were once beginner next level members, and then they lost that. They lost that mind that they had, some of it. I don't know what degree they retained, but uh, but but the lower forces are portraying them as being the creators of this planet and being the space aliens, and also or the seeders of this planet. And even though there's degrees of truth to that, from my understanding and belief and knowledge from the next level, but um, in general, what I felt to say about that was that they're not visitors; they're the creators of the planet. But they were visitors in the context that they don't live here. They literally live someplace. They live in vehicles, in spacecrafts. That's where they live. So when they're on Earth, they're visiting. It's just a brief task, even though that brief task might be 25 years in the human kingdom. That's a short time. That's only like, a couple hours, or not even an hour, actually, next level time, if you want to make an analogy like that, even though it's not an exact analogy. But but then T was wondering why it put her to sleep, that movie. But then she related it to the way that Doe's energy got zapped at meetings. I know sometimes I would watch him when I knew that he was getting zapped at meetings. Then I was more observant of when he would leave the meeting. Sometimes he would get out of his chair very slowly, and you could tell that he was like not sure that he would have his balance and stuff. And because he was weak, he was like in a weakened condition, and that was because. But he liked that weakened condition when it came from the response of his vehicle to his pulling in on his older member's mind, T, and the students pulling on both their minds, or pulling on his mind that was also pulling on T's mind, because of the way that that whole structure is set up. That older members pull on their older member's mind, and younger members pull on their older member's mind. And younger members don't pull on each other's mind. Even though younger members can work out their issues by each pulling on their older member's mind to try to get the kind of solution to a problem that their older members would give them to work on. And so they want to hear from each other in their conversations that they have without words necessarily, because they have vehicles now that can have accurate communications with their minds, because they're not being bombarded by discarnate influences, by thought forms in this human kingdom, and by the space alien souls, who also can send discarnates to us, and can also send thoughts to us. And maybe the way they send thoughts to us is through discarnates. I'm not sure exactly, but they talked about as that the space aliens bombarded humans with their thinking to try to keep them human, keep them reproducing, as an example of something that the next level doesn't try to keep humans doing. Because there's enough vehicles for the next level to have vehicles to use um, as the environment for growing souls. And and growing spirits. If they haven't grown to a point to where the next level gave them that soul deposit. And then when T was giving a talk at one point, well, I think they were talking about in the 70s, uh, giving an interview to someone in the media. Uh, she was supposed to say something, and when it was her time to talk, she had nothing to say. But if you listen to tape 199, you'll see that she's got a lot to say, and it's coming naturally from her. She had that mind was in her vehicle, but her vehicle wasn't. She didn't pick a vehicle that would have uh, the same. I want to say capacity or the same, training to be able to do the task the way that Doe was doing it, because Doe was designed to have a vehicle that was closer in growth to the students that he was trying to bring up into next level membership. And so, uh, uh, so T was actually setting it up ahead of time that she was blocked from knowing certain things that she knew. Because if those things were in her mind of her vehicle and she was conscious of them, then those thoughts would also be going out to humans. And it's not necessarily time for all humans to receive the same kind of thoughts. Like when they stimulated the development of the use of electricity, like as the story goes, through Ben Franklin's Go Fly a Kite, that was specifically given to that one vehicle, according to T and Doe, to be able to discover electricity and then to develop that discovery into everything that it became. That wasn't like humans don't discover anything, they said in this tape. Nothing. Humans aren't discovering anything. They use the analogy that a dog isn't discovering anything about his world, and anything new. Well, I mean, see, we could take that to an extreme. I mean, every creature is potentially learning, so they are discovering things that, right? Like if the dog is looking for food, or the wolf is looking for food, they have their ways of sniffing it out, right? And then finding it, and so they discover where their prey is and things like that. But we're talking about discovery, meaning like new inventions. That's the relativeness of that statement from Doe, that humans aren't discovering. And that can be taken to an extreme too. Like just because they discovered electricity, did that mean that the next level gave them the exact way to make a vacuum cleaner and to use a hammer? Because the next level doesn't use hammers. They have physical ways of doing things, but they don't do things like with nuts and bolts and hammers and chisels and things like that. I shouldn't be adding. I should just keep it to hammers because that's the only example they gave us at that moment. But I think it's the same kind of thing. But that's an example of how I can say things that I think are being helpful, but then I'll hear somebody else quoted as if it came from T and Doe, and I'll recognize that I really should have stuck to more of what they said. But I'm not being allowed to stick to what they said exactly, because if I was allowed to do that, I would be playing the tape for you. I might still be commenting on it, because there's things about it that uh, um, you know, first time hearing it, a lot of people aren't going to necessarily get. But then when you hear it more often, you start to get more. And so, if I wasn't allowed to play entire tapes, I'd like to be able to play partial tapes so I can make certain points that I want to make that are useful for individuals that are trying to serve the next level by standing up for T and Do in their defense and by getting their information out. And so, which brings up something that I did want to talk about. Um, that when I first started listening to this tape with Kathy 4 or 5 days ago, uh, we listened to maybe the first 15 minutes, and it was T was talking for a large portion of that beginning. And to me, she was very clear and very demonstrating that she wasn't trying to demonstrate this, but to me, she was demonstrating how committed she was, how understanding she was, how knowledgeable she was, how perceptive she was, how aware, conscious, well, I don't know what words to use, but all those words in what she was talking about. But if you actually just heard the words and you didn't already know that T was exactly who she grew to know that she is, because she didn't learn that right away. We learned from this tape that she gradually came to understand who she was. When I say was, meaning a member of the next level. And talking about the soul that was taking that vehicle. And it wasn't until they had students that she felt like she recognized who she was. So that was April or so of 1975. So she went from, I don't know, you could say April or so of 1972, around the time when she first met Do, to 72, 3, 4, 5, 3 years of awakening to who she is. Now, that didn't mean once she knew who she was as being an older member from the next level, I believe that included even knowing that she was Do's older member, which I don't know if she ever said that, but she did kind of say something in this tape 199 that I kind of felt like was telling me that she knew that. I might have misinterpreted it wrong, but anyway, you can listen to it and see if you can find the same spot, and let me know if I'd like to write it down so I could transcribe it, but I'm not allowed to do that either, apparently, even though who knows what I might be allowed to do if I just did it. But anyway, I can't approach that right now. But to where, well, let me get back to the thing I was saying about that, was that people call T a hypocrite sometimes. You know, people ask me about what the things that Terry said, her vehicle's daughter, and that the host said in the Heaven's Gate podcast, where that was the first time I heard anybody calling T a hypocrite because of the letters that she got, that she sent to Terry, and some of the money, $600 or so that she sent, and the many letters, 20-something letters, whatever it was, that she sent over a number of years to Terry to help encourage Terry to, go on with her life, etc. But, and to remain positive about what was happening, and even though it was hard for Terry to do that, understandably so. But maybe she's gaining that perspective now, for all I know. I hope so, because I know it would be a positive for her, even though it's her choice, and I'm not her judge in any respect. But I knew that T was not a hypocrite. That's what I'm getting at. And but how can I prove that? Well, I can prove it in certain ways. Um, I guess since I brought this up, I have to, you know, that T wasn't responsible to us. T was responsible to her older member. And so if she felt like from her older member she was getting a signal to send Terry a letter, who am I to say that that was not right? Because in general, the students were not, well, it wasn't part of the process of overcoming our humanness to remain connected to our family members because they were pulling us out of the human kingdom for serious accelerated growth. Not that that's something that somebody else, like they even said, and I think tape 149 as well, that that wasn't for humans to leave everything behind. And even though it is part of the program and process, so that when an older member does come and is incarnate, and we happen to be a soul that's looking for a vehicle to take over, and that vehicle has been picked by the next level and ourselves to be ready for that older member's teachings and recognition of them, then knowing that they would require us to leave everything behind so we can give 100% energy to overcoming our humanness, that gives us the ability to actually do that because we have a program for it. But that's the next level program. And that comes with the chip, I think, some of that. That is part of each deposit of a soul deposit. Or I'm going all over the place, I know. But so I just, what I wanted to do when I listened to that beginning of the tape 199 was I wanted to take that clip of T talking, I wanted to play it on this live stream. And I wanted to take the clip that Doe was talking as well and play it on the live stream. But then really the whole tape would be played on the live stream. You know, that's what I really want to do. So that everybody can have their own experience with it. But, you know, maybe the next level doesn't want that to happen because of the fact that they want to see other individuals go after that information themselves. And they saw to it that that information was available. Because all the tapes that T are in have been available since 1997, when Riccoti got them out of storage. And then he made copies of them, and then he digitized them, and then he sent them to people on CDs for free. And he sent them to me. And Carlotti was part of that, sending them to people and digitizing them. Huh? And universities he sent them to, libraries. So, and Carlotti was giving away a certain amount of that information. I'm not going to say specifically what, because I wasn't there. And that could probably be used against us. So I'm not going to try to be detailed about that. But anyway, so, and most of their information is available right now. So to me, it doesn't really matter if the remaining tapes come out or don't. If the next level wants them to come out at this time, something will happen to where they'll be made available. And And I believe that 100% because the next level is in control here. This is their laboratory. They've got a lab that's working with the way that information is being provided to people about the group. And working with people probably in the media as well and helping them. And sometimes they receive the help and sometimes they probably don't. Because, everybody's got their free will and they don't know what's coming from the next level and what's coming from, uh, they don't know where it's coming from necessarily when they have an idea to do something. But I know some of the documentaries, the people that did the documentaries, I think did a pretty good job considering what they were, doing according to their society and their beliefs. So, and I think they're doing a good job because I wouldn't see that as a good job if it didn't have a certain amount of next level information in it. Even when they play clips of no, even though they're saying that these clips are evidence of brainwashing and stuff like that, when it's the real thing that's happening, then there's people that get something from that, potentially. Even if they're talking negative about them. I don't have any. We need to go to the store, baby. So T said about that movie that she felt there was things in that humans can draw from. And that when they think about it, they are actually drawing next level mind that's been engaged to be a part of those movies. Some of those movies. There's a bunch of science fictions that have all different little pieces of next level thinking in them. I'm not going to go through those right now because they're not on the top of my head anyway. I just know we keep seeing things. And then I was talking about I wish I knew what the next level was doing when you were down. And then you start to think about it, and it seemed like he thought about it in two ways. And one was that the next level mind stays with the vehicle, but is, for the most part, is the way he worded it. And but that the mind of the vehicle, the spirit of the vehicle, synonymous with the word mind being a more accurate way of thinking about it, is responsible sometimes during sleep time for the vehicle playing tapes that are inappropriate. In other words, tapes of anything that's human behaviors. And where you're participating in it or thinking about somebody or sensuality or whatever it is would be inappropriate in that classroom because that's one of the lesson grounds. And so, but then T said, want to know what I think as a question? And Doe said, yes. And she said, in your task, you work on your strain, so to speak. In other words, strain meaning the strain of mind in the human kingdom. That means all the people that have vehicles that have mind in them, which all the human vehicles have. But they're all broken up into like a tree. So there's all different branches of mind, actually. Mind actually is literal. It's like a plasma kind of physicality, is my understanding. And and then Doe said, "Oh yes, just had a picture when you said that. That it may be fantasy, but sometimes I think what you do in your craft, talking about the students, is dress rehearsal, and that you do the same kinds of things, and it's performance to clean up your act." So he was saying that sometimes he thinks that uh, real life is the dress rehearsal for what we learn about in our dreams. But then he said, or it's in reverse, that when you're down during sleep time, that's the dress rehearsal. Rehearsing, and then that's probably more the way it is. And then T said, yes, I think that's the way it is. So that was showing you, us, how Doe was pulling on the mind of his older member, whether we know it or not, which he knew was T's mind, but that when he was trying to get the answer, he got one picture and then he got another one as he was describing it, and he knew that the second one was more accurate, and then T verified that it was more accurate. So showing the process of his thirst. Because, people in the media a lot of times portray T and Doe as having come up with this mixture of Christianity and New Age, and they put it all together and they made it into this belief system that they then put on everybody and said, this is the way it is, and you got to believe in this if you want to go to heaven, and but that's not the way it worked. They didn't come up with everything ahead of time at all. They came up with things in a time, in a time not timeshare. They didn't use that word because that's what the lower forces do with our vehicles. They use our vehicles like in a timeshare kind of way. But the term that they used for what I'm talking about, I believe, is calibrated. Maybe that was one of the words that they used uh, to to give a certain amount of understanding according to the capacity of the minds using the brains of the vehicle to compute and take in and recognize as reality, and then as they continue to think about it, it's like pulling on the thread of that mind until they recognize that they know it. They know that it's a fact. It's not like because they were told something. It's because they pull in enough of it to where they know it, and they even know that they don't know all about it. And they know not to really talk in absolutes about it because they know that there's more to learn about almost any subject. And so, we're demonstrating the way that they got information, and they got accurate information. And even if it wasn't totally accurate, which always blew my mind whenever they would say, well, this isn't totally accurate, but it works for now. It works. And so it's, and they taught that about the discarnate influences, the dead humans that were still trying to do the things that they did while they were dead, while they were living in a human vehicle, and how blocking out their thoughts was part of the process. And at one point they said that it doesn't really matter if that's true, that way that happens. It works to think of it that way. So to somebody trying to influence you to do something that you don't want to do, you can think of that as a discarnate influence, as if there was a human standing there saying, do it, do it, do it, drive that truck over the cliff and maybe you'll fly, something stupid like that. I'm just making something up, but yeah, it could be just as stupid. And then Doe said, yes, you will be going through the exact same things upon awakening and could be like even premonitions and things. They felt like they have consciousness that when things go wrong in the lab, that you had dreams about it that were to prepare you for showing you the potential hazards of the next day so that you might be on guard for them. So when the next level mind comes back in, it shows you that you didn't, when you make certain mistakes in the lab, that you didn't do your sermon enough on the mind of the vehicle. This wouldn't come into your conscious mind, but your subconscious mind saying you won't do this or think about that. So it becomes part of the conscious mind is when you go to that moment of that potential hazard that gives the choice to let it go on or let the hazard take over. The choice to stop it from going on or let the hazard take over. And hazard meaning a hazard in relationship to the behavior and ways that you want to adopt for yourself that came from Tiendo's mind.
What time is the debate?
Yeah, I want to definitely stop so that we can watch it. I'm getting kind of tired too. I'll go to questions in a minute here.
I need to look that up. I'm going to look it up right now.
But a lab could be right in the presence of us and we wouldn't even see it because we're not capable of computing it. It's like animals have certain ways, things that they can see and hear that humans generally can't. It's the same way. Humans have certain frequencies in hearing and seeing that we don't know how to interpret.
The debate starts at 9 p.m.
Oh, okay.
That's late for us.
Yeah, it is. Well, we can watch it another time. We'll see all the talking heads talking about it. I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted to see anything that happens by just the way the whole thing is done.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, 9 p.m. is pretty. And tomorrow is Friday, so definitely have to work.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe I'll go to the chat room now and see if there's anything in there going on. Matthew Carey says, I believe plants definitely have the ability to help humans, especially providing nutrients or relief in pain, etc. Root teas are probably one of the healthiest teas to ingest. I think there's some truth to that. A lot of truth to that. Some individuals get a buzz from being negative. Yes, that's true. I believe that's truth to that too, Matthew Carey. Little Phone says, hi friend, love your channel. I usually never am free to hop in your lives, but I check them out later. You're wise beyond yourself, and I love to see you're doing well and learning still. Well, thank you. Yeah, T and O's minds are so vast, even the little bit that to us, is huge, and to them might be a little bit, like I just said, is huge for us. Matthew Carey says, especially with trolling, because it almost becomes a game in where they try to break someone. Yeah, I bet you that's happening a bunch of times with people. Yeah, and I know Christians do that too. They like to, you know, set people straight. And, I mean, I don't like doing that actually, but I feel like I have to try. But I don't feel like I'm setting them straight. I feel like I'm offering them more to look at than they've looked at before. Darcy John, vibrations at different frequencies. Yes, exactly. Darcy then says that we are evolved physically as plant life, not attached to the soil. Yes, exactly. We are plant life that's not attached to the soil. I think in their hearts so vast, which attracted the elders to them. Yeah, I think there's probably some, I don't know if I'm interpreting you right, but I think they can read our hearts, our minds. They don't invade us unless they see that we're looking for help, and then they get signals if that help is genuine, that desire for help is genuine. Then they they can zero into the person, and yes, they can see where their hearts are. I believe. Well, that's all there is. So I guess I didn't stimulate too many questions.
All right, let's close it out.
So, folks, it's been a pleasure. Darcy Matt says, Matt? I guess that's some kind of language for adios or good night or whatever. So, good night, folks.